This is New Kids on the Block. And this week we have a great episode because we have three dynamic members who are also in-demand speakers and authors. We will have, everyone will have 12 minutes, and we are going to introduce them in the order that they joined the club. Janice Litvin, Janelle Barlow, and then Tracy Hooper. And you have to admit, don't these three speakers and members look great in person? So with that, the purpose of the new kids is to let us know a little about their lives before we met them as the dynamic professionals that they are today. So with that, the expert in banishing burnout, here's Janice Litvin.
Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Patricia. I have wanted to dance my entire life. And if you've heard anything from any of my Banish Burnout speeches, I tell a story about quitting my job at Bank of America and becoming a dancer. So I thought it would be fun to show one picture, and in the chaos of my house being painted, I found my old dance album. So I have a few photos for you today. So you can see my screen, my pictures. Okay, great. So throughout my life in school, they always knew they could count on Janice to be in a show. If you look, so this was middle school, the middle school Christmas pageant. The two people in the front are Jewish, which is fun. And most of you probably will not recognize on the left side is Gina Hecht, who was one of the co-stars of Mork and Mindy, and she's been in a number of movies and bit parts. Before I left Bank of America, we had a Bank of America talent show, and I decided to submit myself to do a dance, and I had lost a lot of weight there, so I'm feeling very proud of myself in that picture. When I got to LA, my dream job was to be a dancer. I'll never forget my father on the phone when I decided to move to LA. What are you, crazy, leaving that wonderful job at Bank of America as a computer programmer? But as you know, as all of you know, when you get to LA, you have to have a headshot. So this was my very first headshot. I've never had that short of hair since then, but at that time I thought it'd be fun, and being a dancer, it'd be easier to take care of. Here's some more fun headshots. And I will show you some pictures from the show I was in Reno in just a moment. But first I wanted to show you that I was in a movie called Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band as a dance extra. In the movie, you can barely see me in one little tiny scene, but I did get to meet Peter Frampton, George Burns, and the Bee Gees. So that was a lot of fun. They fed us every day. We made $50 a day as a dance extra. Finally, I was chosen to be in a show called Jubilation 78, meaning 1978. And by the way, you can see that I'm relatively thin there, thank God. But I almost got fired from the show. One night when I got back from rehearsals, my roommate said, oh my God, we were talking and we decided you need to lose weight for the good of the show. And I was in shock that someone had that much nerve to talk to me like that. But sure enough, the next day, the producer called me aside and said, if you don't lose 5 pounds, we're going to drop you from the show. So I ate nothing but salad for a week from Marie Callender's, for those of you who remember Marie Callender's. And being at the late 70s, we had a Star Wars number, we had a Rocky number, and a lot of other fun numbers. Then, as many of you know, I have never let go of my love for dance. And after 20 years as a software consultant, trainer, and recruiter. I had nothing to do because of the downturn, economic downturn. But after being a recruiter for 20 years, I thought, I'm ready for a change. So it was a blessing in disguise. And one day I was at the gym and someone said, you should become a Zumba instructor. And I didn't know what Zumba was at the time. It was very new on the West Coast. And I did, in fact, become a Zumba instructor. And I quickly went to the City of Walnut Creek Recreation, where I'm still teaching now on Zoom with Susan Rowan and Tana Hope every week coming to my classes. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you will see this photo this week in an article about comparing Zumba leading a corporate organization. I went to my first Zumba fitness convention in 2012 and 2013, and being super crowded. Oh, excuse me for the word super. Being super crowded, I decided not to go back. And I've been teaching Zumba ever since. This July, I will celebrate my 15th anniversary because I love to move and love helping other people move and get excited about dance. And as many of you will recall, on Valentine's Day of 2018, I got a lot of people up dancing at the Golden Gate Breakfast Club for my talk, Fall in Love with Fitness. Thank you to Patricia for inviting me. I even took a room at the Marie's Memorial, thanks to Dr. Jackie, who's not here today, so that I could get up early and get to the club on time. And so now, because I love to move and I want other people to move, I have learned that if I can get my audiences up dancing, they will not only remember me, but they will be more ready to listen, because once they've been dancing, and this is my friend Manya, who used to come to my classes at 24-Hour Fitness, the one doing the bump with me. What I have learned is that when people get up and move with you, they're laughing. Even the people who don't get up are laughing, and they are more ready to learn and listen, and my talks are more memorable. I'm always looking for a place to dance, and when we visited my daughter-in-law's family in Colombia this year, we went to a resort called San Andres, which is part of Colombia, but closer to Costa Rica. And they had this wonderful, wonderful salsa band in the lobby. And when I started moving, one of the band members got down and did the salsa with me. That was so fun. And I have 5 minutes. Oh, I have a whole 5 minutes left. So all I can say is that dance is life. And if you don't like to dance, that's okay. You can get up and move, turn on some music and shake your hands and shake your body. There's nothing like moving to make you happy, healthy, improve your clarity of mind, and be more enjoyable to be around. Thank you so much, Patricia.
You were going to tell us about meeting Anne Margaret
Yes. Oh,
nearly
yes.
getting fired.
Yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay. Thank you so much for that reminder. So my job in Reno was at a casino called Jonasquaga's Nugget. So and we had the big, thick eyelashes and the brief outfits. So we got a lot of attention when we walked around the casino. And a few of us loved to sit down at the blackjack table. And we got excited no matter who won. And finally, those of us who loved blackjack were fired because it was illegal to encourage gambling of other people in Nevada. And so even though we had been warned, I was young and stupid, and they didn't like it when the young women, I started to say girls, young women from the show would cavort with the strange men at the casino. And then the story about Anne Margaret, the choreographer on our show was one of her backup dancers in her Vegas. She had a resident Vegas show in the 70s, and we rehearsed in Vegas. And one night he said, I have a surprise. We're going to see Anne Margaret, and you're going to her dressing room afterwards. And so we got to go backstage and meet Anne Margaret in her big fancy dressing room. She was as sweet as pie. She hugged us. I couldn't find any pictures with her, but she was one of the most lovely people I ever met. Uh-oh, you're
Yeah,
muted,
yeah,
Patricia.
yeah. And as we heard last week, enjoyed a wonderful relationship affair with Elvis. But that was last week's talk. Janice, that was absolutely wonderful. You got to your time. And is that your husband
Yeah,
there?
yeah, come in,
Hello,
honey.
Joe. Hello,
Yeah.
Joe. Nice to see you. Now,
Hi.
and we will certainly have time for questions of Janice after we have officially voted her in. So this is the time. Please now go to gallery view and so we can see everyone. Paul Coleman has joined us from England. And so now this is the time, and Alan Garber, as our resident lawyer, will keep us honest. This, after the new kids talk, is when we give a thumbs up if you should keep Janice as a member. Please, everyone, good. You're getting a lot of two thumbs. Don, come on, give us a vote. All right. Okay, good. All right. So, if you can move the screen, so make sure I know on my Zoom we got two groups of people. All right, good. Paul from England, put up your thumb. Are we going to lose a very good member? Okay, good. Okay, Randall Reader, I can't see your fingers. Good. All right, perfect. So, Alan Garber, do we keep her as a member?
Well, let me say I'm very humbled and excited to stand in the shoes of the late Dick Poley, and I have now so much power over this club. I'm I'm just exhilarated, and I'm I'm trying to.
Okay, come on.
All right, Janice
Okay,
Litvin,
good.
you are
Wonderful.
in.
Janice Litvin is our member, so good. Wonderful now.
Thank
And
you.
Pete will now spotlight our second new kid,
What?
which is Janelle Barlow. And I go, okay, wonderful. So Janelle, if we can spotlight her, this would be great. I've gone on the spotlight and I'm seeing Alan Garber. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Because definitely Janelle looks wonderful. Janelle has in her career not only been a best-selling author, there she is, and has a home full of wonderful art. She's been a leader in the National Speakers Association, an international trainer. So over to you, Janelle.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody. This has been an interesting exercise because I'm not used to talking about myself. You know, as speakers, people talk about you. So, and at 81 years of age, I have a lot of real estate to cover here. So what I did was, just to give you a little behind the scenes here, I made up a list on a timeline of things that have occurred in my life. And then I began to see what happened during those periods. And what I did was I came up with 5 themes that I saw in my life, and hopefully you'll learn something from them as well. The first theme takes place in my early years. I was born in South Dakota, in Huron, which is sort of inland a little bit on the east. And I did not like South Dakota as soon as I was capable of liking something. And I wanted to leave. I mean, I knew I'd been born in the wrong state. Part of the problem with South Dakota is very, very flat. I mean, everybody thinks of it as the Black Hills, but they're way on the west side. So it was very, very flat. I had a hard time learning northeast, south, and west because it was all the same. It was so wonderful when I moved to San Francisco because I knew the Pacific Ocean and I was looking at the west, and I looked to the Golden Gate Bridge and I was looking at the north and the East Bay Hills, and the south took care of itself. So I finally learned my directions. I, at 6 years of age, decided I wanted to get out of the state, but you don't get to leave at 6 because then you're a runaway. So I decided I needed to fill my time. It seems kind of strange to have done this at that age, but it's what happened. And what I did was and this is my first theme, and that is that if you've got waiting time, fill it with things that are going to benefit you later on. And so what I did was I became a voracious reader. And I still am in my life. I was in a speaking contest at 6, and then I continued into high school debate and extemporaneous speech and the piano. That's something that I've now recovering just recently. My mother was a piano teacher. I started at 6, and I used to play in my late teens. I played 6 hours a day. I had a senior recital and played 176 pages and some very complicated music. In fact, if you go onto YouTube, you can see the person who's considered to be the world's best pianist, and that is Yu-Jia Wang. And she's playing some of the same pieces that I played, that she played at her senior recital, except she was really a committed pianist. So that was the first theme, and that is that if you've got time waiting, you're sitting on the toilet, you're sitting at a bus stop, you're sitting waiting for somebody, fill it up with something that's useful for you. The second theme was that speed, and I wanted to travel because I really hadn't done any of that from South Dakota, and I wanted to get my education done. And I really encourage you, take action, keep moving. Life doesn't last very long. I can't believe I'm 81 years of age. Education was important to me, but I wanted to get through it. It was a union card for me. So I did my undergraduate work in 3 years, my first master's in 8 months, and my PhD at Berkeley in 2 years plus a year doing the dissertation. So I didn't spend a lot of time in school. I somehow or other, I think I intuitively figured out that we didn't really need all this education. What we needed, that is content. What we needed was process. How do you do things? And I'm a real good researcher. And fortunately with the internet, that works very nicely. My first husband, who is also named Jeffrey, some of you know my current husband's name, Jeffrey. He's a China scholar and got a Fulbright to go to Vietnam, and I was going to go with him. But it was right during the war, and some of you may remember the Tet Offensive. Well, the government pulled out all of the civilians from Vietnam, and they said, go back to Berkeley. They just canceled the program, go back to Berkeley. That wasn't so easy to do because we had sublet our house and we had taken leaves of absence from the university. So we said, no way. We pushed back. We're not doing that. We're going to go to Taiwan. We hopped on a freighter from Los Angeles and went across the Pacific. Took us 6 weeks. That was an experience unto itself. And I wrote them, I said, look, when we get to Taiwan, we're not going to have any money. And I don't think you want Americans running around there without any money. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. So I wrote George McGovern, who I knew from South Dakota. And he stepped up to the plate, got the money to us. So after a short time in Taiwan, we actually had some money to live on. My advice is don't dawdle, take action, speed, and do it fast, do it fast. Now, the third theme in my life it's about making big decisions. And the best way that I've had for making big decisions is to use what's happening around me. I loved Taiwan. I loved the language, the food, the people. I loved it. And I got a divorce, and I would have stayed there, except my little 4-year-old blonde, curly-haired kid, who was cute as a button, was only learning Chinese. And I didn't want to take him back to the United States at some point with the Chinese accent. So since he looked so different. And so I returned and took a job with the National Defense Education Act for 1 year. And I learned a very important lesson. It was what was happening in my life. And the lesson was, I absolutely did not want to work for anybody else. So I wanted to become an entrepreneur. So I was in my 20s. I had health issues, serious ones. I had ulcers. I had cardiovascular problems from when I was much younger. And I was told by medical doctors if I didn't change my lifestyle, which Janice didn't include any exercise, that I would die before I was 30. And that looked pretty close to me. So I began to work on improving my health, and I did a good job at that. And I thought, other people probably have this same problem in their life. And so what I did was I made up a program and started selling it to corporations in the Bay Area. And that was a fantastic experience for me, because what I did was I learned how to sell my services to big corporations. And that's mostly been the work that I have done. So use what's happening in your life to figure out what your next decision should be. The fourth theme was find what you like and make your decisions quickly. Use your executive function to make quick decisions at going places. I mean, coming to Berkeley was from the University of Pittsburgh, where I did my first master's, was a real quick and major decision for me. I jumped at the chance. I have to say, when I stepped out of my car in Berkeley onto the streets, for the first time in my life, I felt at home. And I've always felt that about San Francisco, where I lived in the Bay Area for 30 years. So it's like a home to me. And moving to Taiwan, challenging the government instead of Vietnam was quite a move too. And then I moved up to Marin. I lived all over the Bay Area, and then decided to move to Las Vegas. And that was in 2001, the later part of the year, or the early part of the year before 9/11. And the major reason for that was because of real estate. It was the only building that I could find for my office. They wanted $1 million for it, and that just wasn't in my bank account. And so my husband and I, second Jeffrey, went to Las Vegas, and we decided to spend some time looking around there. And we were stunned. We were gobsmacked with how fantastic the real estate was for the prices that were there. So we made a snap decision, let's go to Las Vegas. And so we did, and lived there for 19 years. And then we made the same kind of decision moving to Albuquerque. It was a real estate decision. We knew that Las Vegas was getting hotter and it was running out of water, and prices were up really nice. Our real estate had improved in value, so we moved to Albuquerque. We went there on a Thanksgiving Day, and then on January 2nd, just 5 weeks later, we had moving vans pulling up to the new house that we had bought over the weekend when we were there. We have an executive function, and frankly, I think too many people wait too long making decisions. Just, you know what you want. You've got the life experience to do it. And so we did it, and it's been a great experience. It's been a great experience living here. So we were in Albuquerque sort of right before the pandemic started. And I learned about Zoom, and that really excited me. And I'm really excited about the Golden Gate Breakfast Club with the opportunity to use Zoom, that you don't have to live someplace in today's world. I didn't want to travel. I had banked 4.5 million miles on United Airlines, and I needed to stop that. It was getting too difficult for me. And so what I did was I narrowed down my field of expertise and decided that I would work with online programs. And that's what I'm doing. My narrow focus is about complaint handling. You see it on my name, Janelle Barlow, A Complaint is a Gift. Some people call me Miss Gift. They think that's my last name, but it's not. And I decided to focus there. I'm absolutely stunned by how much money we leave on the table. So I want to say real quickly, the last theme is about communities. The National Speakers Association has been a fantastic community for me. The Golden Gate Breakfast Club, and also a great community for me has been the international community out of Denmark that I joined and stayed with for decades. For all the people that I know around the world, communities are, I think, what makes life so exciting. I don't want to stop. I feel like I've got at least another decade's amount of work with me, at least that much. And so all I can really do is just thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this, to rejoin my connection to the San Francisco Bay Area. I do make it up there every once in a while, not too often, but so far it hasn't happened when you've had your meetings, but maybe that will happen in the future. So thank you very, 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 very much. And thank you, Ms. Fripp, for making all this happen with me. Thank you.
Well, absolutely wonderful. Both you and Janice have come in exactly at 12 minutes. Amazing. Let's now, if we please go to gallery view so that we can see everybody. This is Richard Wank has got his thumbs up. Antonio White has got his hands up. So please, everyone counts. Tom Jacob, that's it. Betty, we're going to be doing for this in July for you. Al, even our guests are voting for you, Janelle. Of course, Bruce is your guest. All right, I'm looking at both screens. Wonderful. So, Alan Garber, you have the power. Do we accept Janelle as a member? We've got her money, remember? Wow. Good.
Well, money talks, as we know. Janelle, let's see if you qualify.
The Allen meter is going. It turned in her favor.
Yes.
Yay.
Welcome to our community.
Thank you.
All right. Perfect. Good. So now for our third amazing new kid, another speaker who spoke to us, I believe, twice before. She said, well, maybe I'd like to come back more often. So can we give a hand for Tracy Hooper and Pete Spotlight? Tracy, thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Wouldn't everybody love to have Patricia Fripp in a bottle and stick her in your pocket? And every time you go somewhere and you need an introduction, you whip Patricia out and she... Good morning, Breakfast Clubbers. 2 stories for you. My elegant, wise, 91-year-old mother, Barbara, who we call Mom Air, was the original talk show host. I am one of 6 children, and every night at the dinner table, my mother would get the show started. She would say, Libby, tell us about play rehearsal today. Tommy, you looked so great on the wrestling mat. Good job. Meg, I know you have a spelling bee coming up. What's the word you're working on? It wasn't that prescriptive, but we knew whether we were 2 or 12 that we would be included in the conversation. And we learned how to speak up, how to stand up for ourselves if we got interrupted, how to ask questions and be curious. We learned how to amplify another person. Mother would say, Tommy, hold on a second. Okay, Missy, what'd you want to say? Okay, good. She would make everyone feel as if they were the most important person in the room. And that's really what both of our parents taught us. My father was a sportscaster in Baltimore for 50 years. He was at WBAL TV, and he was known as the Dean of Sports, Vince Bagley. So you can imagine the kinds of stories that my father had that he told at the dinner table with all these major athletes that he had met over the years. And I want to emphasize that everyone had a chance to talk and everybody learned to listen. And don't you think that is the unsung hero of good communication, being a good listener? So our parents taught us that if we could speak up and stand up for ourselves and listen well, that we would be confident in the world. Plus, we had all kinds of kids in the neighborhood who would come over for dinner, and our grandparents. It was a very lively dinner table conversation. And I have brought those skills of how do you connect with people from the dinner table to the work that I do now with the Confidence Project. And in between, I was a television news reporter and anchor. And as you can imagine, when you are a reporter, you need to get people's attention fast, because most of the time, people on the street do not want to be talking with the news crew. So if you can introduce yourself and start a conversation and make them feel as if they are the most important person in the room, they will respond. My father passed away at 93 after a great life, and my mother, with 6 children, 15 grandchildren, and 6 great-grandchildren, still shares all kinds of words of wisdom with us around the dinner table. And with your permission, I would like to share some of Momarisms. Mother's words of wisdom we call Momarisms. Here we go. On parenting. Children haven't changed, parents have. Let your children mourn their mistakes, because then they'll make fewer of them later on. The hard part about having adult children is that you have to watch them go through it. On self-awareness, Mom says, it's hard to see ourselves. Be open to feedback from people you trust. Feedback is a gift that can help you grow. Is it moving you forward? Mom says if a job or a relationship isn't moving you forward, move on. On education, Mom Air says, education lifts you up and out. My mother had 2 brothers. Both of them went to college, but my mom didn't get to go to college. So at age 42, when my brother Vince was in the 1st grade, Mom started going to school, and she took 1 or 2 classes at a time. And one time someone said to her, Barbara, you're 42 now. At the rate you're going, you're not going to graduate till you're 48. And my mother said, well, I'm going to be 48 anyway. Why not be 48 with a degree? Education lifts you up and out. On self-confidence, instead of using a disclaimer before you're saying something like, oh, correct me if I'm wrong, or this is a stupid question, my mother says this thought is 30 seconds old. She knows her thought is not fully formed, but she has enough confidence to say it anyway. This thought is 30 seconds old. Here's another one on aging. Spend time with people 10 years younger than you. It keeps you young and current. Another one. The older you get, the younger your hairdresser should be. It takes 10 minutes longer every decade to go to bed. Is that a great Momarism? You got to floss, take out your contacts, wash your face, tone, moisturize. Here's Mother. I hate putting on makeup, but I love the result. And finally, she says, people are living far too long these days. Here's my opinion. If you want a facelift, you should get it. Another Momarism on loss. Any woman who has buried her mother still longs to please her. And finally, on love. Regarding gay marriage, Mom says, it's hard enough to find love in the world. So if 2 people of the same gender find love with each other, I say, good for them. And she says, when someone passes, when you love someone, it is never enough time. That is Mom Air. Speaking of love, my beloved husband Henry and I met in the 1st and 2nd grade. As I said, I was one of 6 children and Henry was one of 8 children. So there was always a Hooper and a Bagley in the same class. Henry was in my sister Libby's class, his brother Ned was in my class, and so on down the line. And Henry and his brothers sang in the Cathedral Men and Boys Choir, which was a big deal in 1966 because they sang at LBJ's daughter's wedding, Lucy Bain Johnson, who was married at the National Basilica in Washington, D.C. Fast forward to high school, and one day my sister Libby comes home and she says, oh, I'm so excited. Henry Hooper invited me out. We're going to an Orioles game. And I remember when Henry walked in the door thinking, she is so lucky. Libby's going out with Henry Hooper. Anyway, they dated their entire senior year. And at graduation time, they said to each other, let's just be friends, but let's make a pact. We're going to visit each other at our respective colleges before we graduate. So Libby and I both went to the University of Maryland. And one day Libby calls me and she says, hey, Trey, you remember that pact that Henry and I made that we were going to visit each other? Well, he's already been to visit me here at Maryland, but now he's invited me to come for the weekend to visit him at Yale. Would you like to go? Yes, please. So Libby and my best friend, Denise Guillet from Paramus, New Jersey, got in our white Chevy Malibu and drove from College Park, Maryland to New Haven, Connecticut. Now remember, This was 1976, and Yale had only been co-ed since 1969. So here we arrived, these adorable co-eds with our set of electric curlers in one arm and our big puffy blankets, comforters in the other arm. And everybody kept looking at us and looking at us. And I finally said to Henry, "What's going on here?" He said, "Well, there are not too many cute girls at Yale. So you all are kind of a big deal." And we said, "Oh, you're welcome." During that weekend, I can remember looking at Henry thinking, he is really cute. But I can't think that because he dated my sister. After college, Henry took a job in your beloved city, San Francisco. It is still his favorite city in the world. And in the 2+ years he lived there, he hiked in Yosemite 12 times. The man loved California. But he wanted to be a teacher. And at the time, it was 1978, and Proposition 13 was passed, and tens of thousands of teachers lost their jobs. So he moved back to Baltimore and got a job at McDonough School, which is a K-12 prep school. And once again, the Bagleys and the Hoopers crisscrossed. Henry ended up teaching my brother Vince 7th grade English at McDonough, and my mother was an academic advisor. And when Henry first moved back to town, I said, "You know what? I'm going to set him up with my college roommate, Mary Sprague. She's adorable." I said, "Mary, you should go out with him. He's a great guy." And they dated for 8 months, and then they broke up. Now enter Blair Barton, a mutual friend of Henry and Tracy's. And she used to say to me, "Tracy, you should go out with Henry Hooper." I said, "I'm not going out with Henry Hooper. He dated my sister. I set him up with my college roommate. He teaches my brother and he works with my mom." And then she'd turn right around and she'd say, "You know, Henry, you should go out with Tracy Bagley." And he'd say, "I'm not going out with Tracy Bagley. She dated my sister. She set me up with her college roommate. I teach her brother and I work with her mother." And then one day, Blair, who lived in Henry's neighborhood, drove to his house, double parked in front of the house, walked up the stairs, knocked on the door and said, "Hey, Henry, can I borrow your phone?" "Sure." So she walks in the kitchen, dials my number, picks up the phone and says, "Hi, Tracy, this is Blair. Here's Henry. Start talking." And we were both mortified. Henry said, "I didn't know she was doing this." Me either. So he said, "You know what? I have choir practice." Remember the Cathedral Men and Boys Choir? Henry was back in the choir as an adult. He said, "I have choir practice on Wednesday night. So what if I come and, we'll catch up afterwards?" I said, "That would be great." So I can remember sitting in my parents' kitchen saying to my mom, "Henry Hooper's coming over tonight, and I can think of 1,000 things I'd rather do than sit around and talk to him." And she said, "Oh, Tracy, he's a nice young man. You'll have fun." Henry came over at 9 p.m. and left at 2 a.m. And when I closed the door, I thought, I could marry that man. And I did. And now, this Sunday, 3 adult daughters, and many stories later, Henry and I are celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. So here's the moral of the story. Never underestimate who you meet in grade school. And number 2, if there's a wise old broad in your life who has her version of mom-erisms, listen up. Thank you all.
I am in tears listening to your mum-erisms and your romance story. Honestly, when I grow up, I would like to be as gracious as Tracy Hooper, as smart and worldly as Janelle Barlow, and as energetic and vivacious as Janice Litvin. Well, it's time. We have to do it. So please go to a gallery view and let's get our thumbs ready. Alan Garber, you have the power. Do we officially tell Tracy Hooper she is a member? Remember, they've all given him money and been involved. All right, Alan Garber, the power is yours.
Well, first of all, Tracy, I think maybe we should induct your mother into this club.
Yeah.
with all of her great motherisms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tracy, welcome to the club.
Thank you, Mom.
Yay! Wonderful.
And by the
Perfect.
way, I married my high school sweetheart 35 years or so after I left high school. So
Wow.
there you go.
Wonderful.
Good. And I think there were a few women in between that we will not mention. So good.
Yes.
With that, and thank you, Carl. And as you notice, Carl, all our speakers gave wonderful programs within their time limit. Thumbs up for professional speakers. Well, I don't know about you, but I absolutely loved hearing the 3 stories and stories about good friends who I didn't know. So at this point, I'm going to go to gallery view and let us take this is your time when we do, and your question is. So who has the first question for any one of our new kids? If you can put your thumb up virtually or in person. Okay, Bill Buchanan.
Good morning. This question is for Janelle Barlow. At 82, I have the usual age-related mild hearing loss, but I just wanted to confirm that I heard that you're 81. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
And I'm wearing hearing aids, which really makes Zoom wonderful, because I was getting to the point when I was in front of groups where I developed this technique where I was walking out in the audience all the time, and it was only so that I could get close to the people who were talking so I could really hear them. And unfortunately, I seem to have a genetic hearing problem. I may eventually go deaf. I'm just not sure. I'm getting some additional medical advice about this, but it's Zoom surely makes both vision and hearing wonderful, really wonderful, instead of these large audiences where you can't see or hear.
Thank you. There's hope for us 82-year-olds.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Well, most people would look at your body at 82 because Bill keeps in wonderful shape, just amazing, marine shape. All right, Alan Garber has a question.
I have a questions for Tracy. First is how old is your mother now? Where does she live? And where do you live?
My mother is 91 and a half. She'll be 92 in October. She lives in Baltimore, Maryland. 4 of my 6 siblings live in Baltimore, so Mom is near them. And living independently, has a beautiful apartment. And I live in Portland, Oregon. And my personal commitment is to see my mother 4 times a year. It doesn't matter what it takes. And I'll
Wonderful.
be seeing her Memorial Day weekend. Thank you.
Right.
Wonderful.
And you live in?
I live in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, okay, good. Wonderful. And my question to Janice is, how did you meet and fall in love with Joe?
Oh, Joe Litvin. Okay, when I was turning 40, I was getting ready to go on vacation with my best friend at the time, Deb Thea, who now lives in Marin, and she was an antique dealer from the East Coast. So she used to go to New York the area every summer to buy antiques. And she said, you should come with me to go buy antiques. And I loved Boston, and that's where she was going. At the same time, my parents and I, of course, were like, well, it's time that you found a husband. I was itching to have a baby, and I thought, well, I better get on the stick. And so a friend of mine and I wrote an ad for the Jewish Bulletin. We have it mounted somewhere. Our house is in disarray. And I wrote this ad that said, vivacious redhead have sown wild oats, now looking for marriage and family. Because I learned, even with a personals ad, you have to be really clear about what you want. And so I was on the East Coast. I was in Newport, Rhode Island. I called my neighbor because a friend long story. I called my neighbor. I said, do you have any mail from the Northern California Jewish Bulletin? Because at that time you had to use an envelope and a pen and a stamp. And they used to mail the letter. You had a box and an ID number to protect your privacy, and they mailed the letters in an envelope. She said yes. She said, you have 3 letters. So she read me the letters. And as soon as I heard Joe's letter, I said, I think he could be the one. We met after one of my dance classes on a Wednesday night at the corner of Mission and 4th. There was a Mexican restaurant, you might remember. I forgot the name of it. And we talked. It was funny about Tracy's story about talking so many hours. We talked from 8:30 at night until 1 in the morning. We went to the Clift Hotel in the Oak Room and sat and had a drink after our dinner at the restaurant. And afterwards, I said, this could be the one. I called my friends and said, this could be the one. After the 3rd date, I said, this could be the one. So that was in August. By November, Thanksgiving, he said, I want to meet your family for Thanksgiving. And I said, I don't think so. But we did go meet the family, and pretty quickly we were engaged, except he was almost divorced. That was the one line in the letter. And long story short, he did get divorced in May. And I was speaking, even though I wasn't a speaker per se, I was speaking at the Society for Technical Communicators in Berkeley, because I was placing tech writers. And he said, let's go afterwards. He said, let's go to Coit Tower, because I love Coit Tower. I said, it's so late at night. He goes, come on, it'll be fun. You'll see all the lights. And that is where he proposed to me, at Coit Tower.
Nice.
And we have been married. This year will be 32 years.
All right, good. Then I guess we need to know from Janelle, how long have you and Jeffrey, and you will remember Jeffrey was a great speaker for us a few weeks ago. How long have you and Jeffrey been married? The second Jeffrey.
The second Jeffrey, yes, on the same day that I married the first Jeffrey, because I forgot when I had married him, and we accidentally ended up being married on the same day. So August 27th, we will have been married for 45 years. Yeah, it's been, I think it's going to work. I think it's going to last. I mean, one thing that I did was, after I was divorced from the first Jeffrey, he's a really wonderful person, but after I divorced from him, I avoided a relationship with Jeffrey, because I met him right away, the second Jeffrey. And, but because I just knew that I needed some time in between a marriage and another marriage. And I think that's really good advice to have. You don't want to go too fast from one to the next. I just seem to have violated my rule about making your fast decisions, but it worked hard. And this whole business about speaking until late at night, I met Jeffrey and I saw each other at a San Francisco mime troupe over in, I think it was Live Oak Park in Berkeley. And we just noticed each other. That was it. And then that was sometime in the summer. I just gotten back from Taiwan with my cute little blonde-haired, curly-haired boy. And I went to a Halloween party, and I met Jeffrey there, and I was with another date, but Jeffrey had a friend who kept that other guy away from us. So we had the whole night at this party talking to each other. You know, I think that's a good sign. If you can't talk to each other, it's not going to work. I think probably just about everybody would agree with that. Yeah, Jeffrey and I never run out of things to say to each other, ever. I hope that continues.
Wow, that's wonderful. So do we have any other even though these are my friends, oh yeah, good. Tom Jacobs, your question.
Hey, Janice, you mentioned Deb Thea. She's a good friend. Yankee girl now up in Petaluma. She was in San Anselmo. And so, we're antique buddies. So she's turned me on to some good antiques. And so anyway, I know Deb very well. Finally, she got married.
Yes. Yes, we were waiting and waiting. I can't believe somebody here knows my friend Deb Thea. We both lived at the corner of 7th and Lake. She was there about a year or two before me. I was there from 1980 to 94, and there were only 6 apartments in the building, so we became fast
Your
friends.
dreams come true.
I knew her mother who lived in Tiburon and her brother who's a very successful doctor in Boston. He researched AIDS in the 80s, went to Zaire. She's an amazing, and every time we reconnect, it's like we saw each other yesterday. You know, you have one of those friends that you may not talk to for a year and then instantly you pick up where you left off. And we used to sit when I first started my first business, MicroSearch, in 1983. I used to come down to her apartment for coffee and we'd watch talk shows and we'd listen to Ron Owens and all the different talk shows and she was very, very intuitive about, is very, very intuitive. And we'd talk about all the different people and their psychological problems. Some of you will remember that radio talk show with the psychologist on KGO radio. Do you remember Dr. I can't think of her name right now. Anybody remember that talk show on KGO radio? At the time that Ron Owens first got started. Oh, Dr. Tony something. And there was another woman and people
Was
would
it
call
Schlesinger?
No, long before her.
Okay.
So people would call in. I can't remember this woman's name, but people would call in. Young women would call in, and within 1 minute, she would say, "Is he beating you?" She always could tell from a radio show, and she was trying to help women overcome their problems with their abusive partners. Anyway,
As
definitely,
I, as I was talking, I think my internet went down. So I don't know if I was heard that years ago I dated a dancer, and she grew up in Boston, and her dream was to be a ballerina. So she finally, when she got old enough, she got a contract with the Boston Ballet, and within 6 months, her back went out, and she had to have surgery, so she couldn't do ballet anymore. So she got into modern dance. She danced with Margaret Jenkins in San Francisco,
yes.
and then she moved to Los Angeles, and she absolutely is passionate about dance. She taught dance at multiple community colleges down in Los Angeles, and none of them wanted to hire her full time because they didn't want to pay the benefits. They like a part-time person. So anyway, she at one college she taught dance at, she was kind of anointed as the heir apparent to be the department chair when that department chair retired. So when that happened, they went for diversity and they bypassed her, and she was a one of those type of people that nice guys finish last. You know, never wanted to complain about that. But the new department chair, the diverse department chair, had it out for her because she learned that she was the one that was supposed to get the job, and started to cut her classes and write her up for, she didn't have a emergency plan in her syllabus, and she was pushing her out. So that year that she was being pushed out of that community college, she's the only instructor, part-time instructor, that was ever voted teacher of the year. So the teachers union took that one up, and anyway, thwarted the department chair who was trying to push her out.
I forgot to tell the story of my beloved dance teacher, Ed Mock. I don't know if anybody remembers Ed Mock, who taught modern jazz and Afro dance. And I actually danced in a show with him at Bimbo's 365 Club, which is still there on Columbus Avenue, in 1977, right before I moved to LA to dance. And he sadly, very sadly, passed away from AIDS. In 1986, I say a little Jewish prayer for him every year on his yahrzeit, his anniversary of his death. He was one of the most impactful dance teachers. He would have us, he lived at the top of the hills near 30th and Church on a funny little street called Lately. I don't know if anybody knows that neighborhood. And we used to go to his house and hang out. And I was so devastated when he passed away that I stopped dancing for a year because I was mourning his loss. So he was a wonderful dancer and friend.
And speaking of Deb Thea, she rented me space in her warehouse in San Rafael. And so when I moved in, I had stuff to store. I was working on my house.
Okay, Tom, excuse me. We've got 3 minutes till 9 o'clock. So we need to just push it back to our new guests. I love hearing your stories, but we have 3 minutes. So I would like to give, unless there's any burning question, Carl, you did know the person Janice was talking about? I think you put in the chat.
Tony Grant.
Oh, Tony Grant. And there was another woman too, but Tony Grant was one of those afternoon talk show hosts. Yes,
Right,
thank you,
right.
Paul.
I used to listen to her. Yeah.
Yes,
Good.
yes, yes.
All right, I would like to give each of our new kids a sort of 2-sentence concluding thought. So as we've been talking to Janice, let's go to Janelle. What is your concluding 2 sentences?
Concluding, that's not such a great word.
Okay, well, I don't like to say last because you're not dropping dead yet.
Not yet, not yet. But I want to say again, I mean, I'm sure everybody in this meeting understands how quickly life goes, and it's how to cherish it. You know, will there be another one through reincarnation? I don't know. I'm kind of a believer in that. But in any case, it's like you don't want to waste a single second of this life. It's just been so precious. And I'm so grateful to be a part of the Golden Gate Breakfast Club now. Let's see, this side. I'm still having problems with northeast, south, and west. So thank you very, very much again.
All right. And Tracy Hooper, your last few sentences, whatever you want to call them.
I will say this. Mom Air has often said, my goal was not to raise good children. My goal was to raise good adults. And she did. And I'm grateful to her and to my dad and to the other elders in our family. You know, we are all now elders, and we have this incredible opportunity to share our own wisdom with younger people. So let's do that.
And Janice Litvin?
If you can walk, you can dance. Dance is life. Don't forget to get up and dance and have fun.
Wonderful. And my mother was a great dancer, and she used to run dances. We had the Temple Hall, which had been a spiritualistic church, and Dad had auction sales there. But Saturday nights, for many years, they had dances my mother ran. So she loved dancing, and the advice she gave me, lots of advice, but one most memorable that I have bedazzled into a pillow. She said, of course, it's the inner you that counts. However, you have to dress up and look good so that you can attract people, so they will find out how nice you are, how smart you are, and how valuable you can be to them. So yay to all our mothers and the very best advice. It is my privilege to be president of the Golden Gate Breakfast Club on a day that we bring in 3 such vital new members. And we look forward to seeing some of you in person next week, and then 2 weeks from now, another vibrant message. And this is a great example of what New Kids Talk should be. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for your participation. Bye.
Bye.